Your body is supposed to protect you, to heal you, to keep you alive through every second of your existence. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when the same body that once let you run, laugh, and love suddenly turns on you like a traitor? Forget car crashes, forget wild animals, forget accidents, because some of the most excruciating ways to die don't come from the outside world. They come from within. Tonight, we're diving into the most painful ways the human body can kill itself. And trust me, nothing is scarier than realizing you can't run away from yourself. The poison incident. Liver failure. It starts small, a dull ache in your side, maybe some nausea. Most people shrug it off as bad food or maybe a hangover. But for a man in his late 30s from Manchester, it wasn't just a bad day. It was his liver shutting down. Years of silent damage caught up to him in a single week. His skin turned a sickly yellow, his eyes glassy, glowing with jaundice. By day 3, he wasn't just tired, he was hallucinating. He swore he saw insects crawling across his walls. He screamed at shadows that weren't there. His own blood was filling with toxins that his failing liver could no longer clean. Doctors tried pumping him with fluids, but the pain was unimaginable. His abdomen swelled until it looked like it might burst. He begged for relief, clawing at his hospital bed, gasping for air like every second was suffocating him. When his wife leaned over to whisper, "It'll be okay," he whispered back through cracked lips, "It feels like poison in my veins." Because that's exactly what it was. His body was drowning him in his own toxins, and when the seizures started, they knew it was only a matter of hours. He passed, slowly, his body quietly poisoning itself until his brain shut down entirely, a man alive, but already gone inside before his heart stopped. The Vice incident. Heart attack. In Las Vegas, a man in his early 50s staggered out of his office one Friday afternoon. At first, coworkers thought he was joking. He clutched his chest, laughed nervously, then collapsed onto the carpet. What they didn't realize is that a heart attack doesn't always look like a movie scene. It feels like being squeezed in a vice grip from the inside. His chest felt like it was imploding. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but the pain didn't stop. He was conscious as they laid him on the stretcher, begging them to make it stop. Every nerve in his chest and arm screamed with fire. His body pumped out adrenaline, sweat pouring like rain. By the time they reached the ER, he was pale, eyes wide, gasping for air. And then it happened. His heart literally stopped in his chest, electricity surging through his body as doctors tried shocking him back to life. The machine beeped, once, twice, silence. All because the same heart that had kept him alive for 5 decades decided it was done. The lock-in incident? Stroke. Imagine being trapped in your own body, your brain screaming, but your mouth unable to speak. That's what happened to a woman in her late 60s in Kyoto. One evening, while preparing dinner, her right hand simply stopped working. The spoon dropped to the floor. Her husband laughed, thinking she was being clumsy, but then her smile froze. One side of her face drooped like melting wax. She tried to yell. Nothing came out. She could still hear. She could still see, but her brain was shutting down piece by piece. By the time paramedics arrived, she was fully paralyzed on one side. She blinked frantically, trying to scream, "I'm still here," but her body betrayed her. They called it a stroke. Doctors fought to save her, but the damage was already carved into her brain. For 3 days she lived like that, a prisoner in her own skin. Her family begged her to respond, but she could only cry silent tears. And on the 4th day, her body gave up entirely. Death didn't come as a crash or an explosion. It came as a slow suffocation of the mind. Trapped. Alone. A consciousness locked inside a dying machine. The rot incident. Septic shock. It started with a cut. Just a simple cut on the leg from gardening. But for a man in rural Texas, that scratch became a nightmare. Within 48 hours, his temperature spiked to 104. His skin flushed bright red. He vomited until blood came out. His wife rushed him to the ER, where doctors realized the infection had spread into his blood. Sepsis, the body's worst betrayal. His immune system went into overdrive, attacking not just the bacteria, but his own organs. His lungs filled with fluid. His kidneys stopped filtering. His veins turned black and blue. Every nerve screamed with pain. He clawed at the bed, moaning like an animal, sweat soaking the sheets as his body essentially began rotting from the inside out. Nurses pumped him with antibiotics, fluids, oxygen, but the infection was too fast, too strong. By day 3, his hands were turning purple. tissue dying, blood no longer flowing. His wife described holding his hand one last time, except it no longer felt warm. It felt like holding ice. He gasped, choked, eyes rolling back, until his body collapsed into full organ failure. All from a cut. His body didn't just lose the fight, it killed him in the process. The desert incident. Dehydration. Dying of thirst isn't just uncomfortable, it's torture. A young backpacker in Arizona underestimated the desert heat. He had one bottle of water. By day 2, it was gone. By day 3, so was he. His lips cracked and bled. His tongue swelled until he couldn't swallow. Each step felt like dragging his feet through fire. His vision blurred. He swore he saw water shimmering in the distance. But when he stumbled toward it, his knees buckled into dry sand. The human body can't last more than a few days without water. Organs begin shutting down, blood thickens, the brain swells. He started hallucinating, laughing, talking to people who weren't there. His skin dried and split, his body shrinking like a raisin under the sun. When rangers finally found him, he was curled in the shade of a rock, mouth open, eyes sunken, gone. His body had consumed itself just to survive a little longer. There are fast deaths, and then there's dehydration, the slowest torture your body can give you. So, what's worse, being crushed in an accident or slowly poisoned by the same body that once kept you alive? Heart attacks, strokes, sepsis, dehydration, and organ failure. None of these are quick. They are cruel, they are silent, and they don't wait for an accident. They wait for time. You don't always need an enemy outside. Sometimes the deadliest killer is already living inside you. So when your body signals you, remember to listen to it and take care of your machine if you intend to live a long and healthy life. See ya in the next one. Number 1. Scaphism. Death by the boats. If you're claustrophobic, this one's definitely going to chill your bones. It was an ancient Persian punishment designed not just to suffocate you, but to keep you alive long enough to witness the slow destruction of your own body. It began by trapping the victim between two hollowed-out boats, one placed beneath, one on top, leaving only the head, arms, and legs exposed. Once locked in, the person couldn't move an inch. The executioners would then smear their body with a mixture of milk and honey, covering every visible patch of skin, and force-feed them the same mixture. The excessive feeding would cause vomiting and diarrhea, turning the small space between the boats into a foul, sticky mess. Soon, insects, flies, beetles, worms were drawn to the scent of decay and sugar. They'd crawl into the open sore's mouth and nostrils, feeding on the flesh while the victim screamed and begged for mercy. The goal wasn't just death, it was prolonged, conscious torment. Victims could survive for days, some reports even mention a week, before dying from dehydration, infection, or being quite literally eaten alive. It's remembered as one of the most disgusting, drawn-out punishments ever recorded in history. Number 2. Lingqi, death by 1,000 cuts. A single paper cut can sting for minutes, but imagine your entire body being sliced open again and again, thousands of times. Lingqi, known as death by 1,000 cuts, was an ancient Chinese punishment reserved for crimes like treason or the murder of one's master. It wasn't meant to just kill. It was meant to erase a person's honor, to make sure even death couldn't cleanse their crime. The condemned would be tied tightly to a wooden post in a public square. Then the executioner began his gruesome work, cutting the flesh slowly, deliberately, and with practiced precision. Arms first, then the legs, then pieces from the chest and shoulders, small controlled slices to keep the victim alive for as long as possible. Imagine the horror of feeling every cut while the crowd watched in silence, some out of duty, others out of morbid curiosity. If the executioner was merciful, or the crime lesser, the first cut might be to the throat, granting instant death before continuing the ritual dismemberment. But most victims weren't so lucky. In Chinese culture, dying with an incomplete body was believed to block the soul's peace after death. So Lingqi didn't just destroy the body, it condemned the soul, a punishment so cruel, it was officially banned in the early 1900s, but the stories remain chilling to this day. Number 3. Sawn in half. This next one feels like something out of a nightmare, but it actually happened to a man named Alcaide Melek in 1705. Melek led a rebellion and even beheaded a cousin of the Sultan's wife. The Sultan, furious, summoned his chief carpenter and asked, "Can your saws cut a man in two?" The carpenter replied, "They can, my lord." The punishment was to be carried out lengthwise, from head to toe, so that death would come slowly. Melik was paraded through the streets on a mule, his body bound tightly and brought to a crowded square. Around 4,000 of his relatives and clan members gathered, forced to watch. His clothes were torn off. He was laid on a board, his hands and legs strapped down. The saw bit into him from between the legs, moving upward, inch by inch. The screams that followed were described as unbearable. Some witnesses claimed Melik stayed conscious for a horrifyingly long time, begging for water as the saw cut through him. His friends cried out, begging the executioners to end it quickly, but mercy wasn't part of the sentence. Blood splattered the wooden platform, and chunks of flesh stuck to the teeth of the saw. By the end, even the executioners were said to be trembling. That day became one of the darkest examples of slow death ever recorded. Number 4, the breaking wheel. If there's one punishment that defined medieval Europe, it was this one, the breaking wheel. The wheel itself looked like a giant wagon wheel, laid flat on the ground or raised upright on a pole. The condemned was tied to it with ropes, arms and legs stretched out unnaturally. Once bound, a heavy iron bar was brought down on the limbs, smashing bones one by one. The sound of cracking echoed through the crowd, first the legs, then the arms, until nothing could move anymore. But it didn't end there. The broken body was then woven between the wheel's spokes, and the entire structure was sometimes hoisted up, left to spin in the air like a grotesque windmill. If that wasn't enough, the wheel might be rolled over spikes, fire, or rocks, ensuring every turn multiplied the agony. The face was left uncovered, so the victim could see what was happening to them. Some accounts mention that it could take hours or even days to die. And religiously, some believed that dying on the wheel denied the soul a proper resurrection, making it not just a physical but a spiritual punishment. It was brutal, public, and symbolic, the kind of spectacle that reminded everyone what disobedience cost in the medieval world. Number 5, the Iron Maiden. You've seen it in horror movies, but yes, it was very real. The Iron Maiden is one of the most recognizable torture devices of all time. It stood upright like a human-shaped coffin made of solid metal. The inside was lined with long, razor-sharp spikes, placed precisely to pierce organs just deep enough to cause agony, but not instant death. Once the victim was pushed inside, the doors shut with a heavy clang, and the spikes sank into flesh. Blood would run down the iron grooves as the victim's muffled screams echoed from within. They could take hours to die, slowly bleeding out, body trembling in the dark, unable to move or see. Executioners sometimes treated it as a game, choosing whether to strike vital organs right away or make the suffering last. Some even adjusted the spikes to hit different parts, depending on the crime. One twisted mercy, spikes were often placed where the eyes would be, so the victim was blinded instantly, never seeing the horror their body endured. Even by medieval standards, this punishment was considered inhumane. It became a symbol of cruelty, and eventually of how far humans could go in the name of justice. Number 6, the Heretic's Fork. Finally, we have the Heretic's Fork, a device that wasn't even meant to kill, but often did. Used during the Spanish Inquisition, it was a small metal instrument shaped like a double-ended fork, with 2 sharp prongs on each side. It was strapped between the chin and the chest using a leather belt. Once locked in place, the victim couldn't speak, swallow, or even lower their head. Any attempt to do so would drive the metal points deeper into the flesh. They were tied tightly, hands, feet, body, forced to stay perfectly still. Imagine the fear of being unable to rest, the sweat dripping down your neck, knowing even a small twitch could pierce your throat. That was the point. It was psychological torture, sleep deprivation, fear, and pain all at once. Victims were often left like this for hours, sometimes days, until exhaustion or blood loss took them. Some survived, but most didn't, and those who did were never the same again. When you hear stories like these, it's hard to believe that humans ever thought such punishments were justice. But they were real, crafted by people who believed pain purified the soul or maintained order. These tortures remind us how far civilization has come, and how dark it once was. Number 1. The Bedroom Fire, October 2021, Coimbatore, India. College student M. Sivaram was exhausted. After a long day of classes, he retreated to his room, plugged in his smartphone charger, and laid down on his bed. Like countless others, he probably set an alarm, maybe planned to scroll a bit before sleep. But night turned into disaster. Around 3 a.m., the calm silence was shattered by the terrible crackle of flames. What started as a tiny spark near his bed sheets quickly became a raging fire. The glow of flames lit up the room's shadows as Sivaram struggled to escape. But it was too late. His family tried desperately to save him, pulling him free from the inferno. Doctors fought to keep him alive, but burns over most of his body had taken their toll. He passed away 6 days later, the hospital bed replaced by an empty room filled with grief. Authorities found the fire originated from overheating caused by the phone charger placed on the bed. When fabric traps heat and an electrical fault occurs, the result can be fatal. This tragedy begged a simple question: why do we still charge phones on beds? Number 2, 2017, Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan. A 14-year-old boy walked toward his train station platform, head down, eyes glued to his smartphone. He was probably texting friends, checking messages, or maybe playing a game. What anyone wouldn't realize, how dangerously close he was to the edge. Oblivious to his surroundings, he never saw the incoming train hurtling towards him. The screeching of brakes and shouts from bystanders were too late. The young boy was struck and killed instantly, a victim of smartphone distraction. This terrible incident isn't unique. Across the globe, commuters walk railroad tracks littered with danger, hypnotized by screens. Just one moment of inattention is all it takes. Stories from Buenos Aires to Madrid remind us, sometimes the most dangerous place isn't far away at all, it's right under your nose. Number 3, the phone call that killed. In 2022, in a small town in Ireland, a bizarre and deeply tragic incident took place involving a phone call, but not in the way you might expect. Liam, a 35-year-old man known for his love of old technology, was working in his garage repairing vintage electronics. His trusty old smartphone had been acting up all week, frequently cutting out during calls and freezing without warning. One rainy evening, Liam received an urgent call on his malfunctioning phone. It was his elderly mother, asking for help with a medical emergency. As Liam hurried out of his garage to answer, the phone suddenly short-circuited in his hand, emitting a sharp electrical shock. But the real horror came next. The shock caused Liam to lose his balance, and he fell back uncontrollably, hitting his head against a sharp corner of a workbench. The impact was fatal. When paramedics arrived, they found Liam unconscious with clear signs of trauma. It turned out that a hidden hardware fault in the phone's battery circuit had turned that innocuous call into a deadly electric hazard. This incident stands out as a grim reminder that mobile phones, beyond just distraction or overheating, can harbor unseen technical dangers capable of causing fatal accidents, especially when combined with human fragility and unexpected circumstances. Number 4, the deadly bus charger. November 1st, 2024. Penang Central Bus Terminal, Malaysia. An ordinary evening turned into a scene of horror on an express bus bound for Kuala Lumpur. Muhammad Nur Asimawi Jasmadi, an 18-year-old, plugged his smartphone into a charging socket on board, just like countless others do every day. But this time, tragedy struck in less than 10 minutes. Passengers were startled by a sudden scream. Muhammad was convulsing in his seat, foaming at the mouth, a terrifying sight that froze everyone. Fellow riders quickly alerted the driver, who stopped the bus and called for emergency help. Despite their efforts, Muhammad was pronounced dead at the scene. An investigation later revealed burn marks on his left fingers, caused by a severe electric shock. The charging cable had melted, and the bus's electrical wiring was found to be incorrectly installed. Reverse-connected wiring that sent dangerous voltage through the socket. The Malaysian Transport Ministry formed a special task force, suspending the bus's operations and launching a nationwide review of charging port safety on buses. What should have been a simple convenience had ended in a brutal, fatal shock. A stark reminder that even everyday tech can hide deadly risks when safety is compromised. Number 5, the fatal wire. October 2024. Kamareddy District, Telangana, India. In a quiet home, 23-year-old Malath Anil had rigged a makeshift charging setup, extending a live wire near his bed to power his smartphone overnight. It was a common shortcut, but fraught with unseen danger. One silent night, Malath accidentally touched the exposed live wire while asleep. Instantly, his body became a conduit for lethal electricity. His family woke to chaos, rushing him to the hospital amid desperate pleas for survival. Doctors fought to save him, but the injuries were too severe. Maloth passed away, leaving a grieving wife and toddler behind. His death underscores a grim reality. Ordinary habits, like charging phones overnight with unsafe wiring, can suddenly turn fatal. This true tragedy serves as a warning. The comfort of convenience can mask hidden dangers lurking in our own homes, waiting for a slip that changes lives forever. Number 6. The Infant Tragedy. 2023. Şanlıurfa, Turkey. A simple moment of curiosity turned into heartbreak for a family. Their 9-month-old infant, left briefly unattended, crawled across the floor toward an extension lead where a phone charger cable was plugged in. Drawn by innocent fascination, the baby bit down on the live cable. A sudden electric shock coursed through their tiny body, causing severe burns and injury. By the time the parents returned, the infant was motionless, clutching the cable in hand. Despite frantic medical intervention, the child could not be saved. The tragedy shook the community and brought attention to a critical issue: the silent dangers of leaving smartphone accessories and chargers within children's reach. This heartbreaking incident is a somber reminder for all families to keep electrical hazards away from even the smallest and most vulnerable among us. Putting phones aside might sound simple, but these stories show how dangerous ignoring the risk can be. Distractions to faulty chargers, smartphones have caused brutal, tragic deaths worldwide. So next time the screen lights up, remember, keeping your life safe means sometimes choosing to look up.